For us, it's a daily thing.
It's every day, right?
This is Mammoth Daily
We're going to take you inside the locker room
with Mike Fulta.
We want this show to be about the fans, and we want this show to be driven by our Utah Mammoth community.
And Adrian Denny.
Fans can submit what they want to hear us talk about, what they want to hear Utah weigh in on. It's all going to be here.
Here's Mike and AD with you.
Utahns, countrymen, lend me your ears.
Right here on Mammoth Daily.
Mike Fulta and Adrian Denny here with you. We are your Hockey Night in Utah radio crew. Adrian, this is the first time I'm seeing the tree in the recording setting, and what a glorious piece of festiveness. That's sensational. And I tell you what, the distribution of the ornaments is tastefully done as well. That's very, very important. Not a real tree, but I commend you all the same for your Christmas spirit, Adrian.
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, Saturday afternoon. Thought, well, better get the stuff up now or it's not going up. So went down to the storage unit, got all my Christmas stuff. I should take everybody on a tour of all the stuff I have. Maybe we'll get the logistics planned out for that. But told Alexa to play some Christmas music and got this baby up, decorated, got the ceramic one on the kitchen table that looks out into the courtyard, and got another small tree just right at the top of the living room over on the other side there.
Wonderful.
On a little shelf. So
that's wonderful. Well, I've been singing Silver Bells here, walking around downtown Boston. It's Christmas time in the city. Utah Mammoth taking on the Boston Bruins here tonight. Second game of the 3-game road trip will be in Detroit on Wednesday, which will be a national TV game. We'll have Nick Olczyk with us, but it'll be me and Adrian and Will, our producer, on the air this evening. Mammoth rolling into Boston at a reasonable hour on Sunday evening after that thrilling afternoon win against the Pittsburgh Penguins, which, Adrian, I still am wrapping my head around. Just some of the most fun hockey in the third period we've seen from this group. And vibes are high. Emotions are good as the team gets ready for a Bruins team that Utah just barely edged out 3-2 back in mid-October in the middle of a 7-game winning streak. But since then, Boston's been really good.
they have been really good. They had a 4-game winning streak snapped on Sunday in Minnesota as they were there for Quinn Hughes' debut. So they were probably happy that Quinn Hughes wasn't traded to the Devils because that's in conference, right? Team they see all the time battling for positioning. But then they saw him the first game that he was with the Minnesota Wild, lost 6-2. It snapped their 4-game winning streak. But Bruins have been putting the puck in the net, Mike. They've had some injuries. They've gotten some guys back. Morgan Geekie's been there the whole time. 23 goals, second only to Nathan McKinnon. How about this? Before Sunday, they'd scored 4 goals or more in 5 straight, and they'd won 4 straight. But before that, they'd scored 4 more just twice in 14 and 5 times in regulation in their first 22 games. So a little healthier. Bruins hung tough, stayed in the mix, and now they're winning, putting up goals, but took 2 of 3 on just completed road trips. So the Mammoth will be the first game back at home for them tonight.
Utah saw Boston when they were kind of in a low point of their season, Adrian, which was right when Utah was at a high point of their season. Mammoth were in the middle of that long win streak, and Boston was in the middle of a 6-game losing streak. But they got out of that, and they were 3-6. It looked like, okay, this could be another tough year in Beantown. But they got out of that and then promptly strung together a 7-game winning streak. And it's a new head coach, Marco Sturm, there now in Boston. And that was one of the few new coaching hires that didn't seem to click right away, like a lot of other teams did. I guess you could throw Mike Sullivan and the Rangers into that mix. But they have since turned things around. You mentioned they've been scoring, and they've been getting it done from a bunch of different guys, too. You kind of go down their roster sheet. You don't need to scan much past the first page of the game notes to see why, or at least part of the picture, why they've been effective as an offensive group. They're a top 10 offensive team, and it is partly due to Morgan Geekie having a great year and being one of the league's best goal scorers. But it's also been everybody kind of pulling on the rope. Casey Middlestat has himself 7 goals. Pavel Zacha with 8. Alex Steeves has 7. He had one against Minnesota the other night. Elias Lindholm was injured for about a month, and ever since he's come back due to injury or from injury, he's been a point per game player. Victor Arvidsson has pitched in 7 goals. Mikey Eyssimont has 5. So they're getting some depth scoring, not just from Geeky and Pasternak, but this newer era has started without Brad Marchand, without guys like Patrice Bergeron and Chara. They still have some holdovers from that regime, but those other depth players have been stepping up. And also, Adrian, you have to mention Jeremy Swayman is looking like the Jeremy Swayman that we expected. Got roughed up against the Minnesota Wild in a game where Minnesota was just supercharged. The building was on fire because Quinn Hughes was playing in his first game there in the Twin Cities. But Swayman, aside from that other night, has been really good this year, has a save percentage back above .910, and is looking like the goaltender that they signed to a gazillion-dollar contract. 8 years. I think it was 8x8. Is that what it was? By Doug Sweeney? And because that was at the start of last year.
That's what it eventually was, Mike. After that was the whole thing. That's what started the awkward season last year for Boston, was him not being in camp, him not being there. And then when they did get him signed, his numbers weren't what they had been. And as you said, his numbers this year are what they've been throughout his career while he got that contract. 13-8 record, and the Bruins are going. But their season kind of started with Marco Sturm, how it kind of started when he joined Boston the first time as a player in the Joe Thornton deal back in 2006, coming over from the San Jose Sharks. It wasn't, it was something that fans were like, huh, what? And started 3-0, lost 6 in a row. But he's a guy that when they were in Salt Lake in October, Mike, was pretty direct about his team and how they had played, how they'd lost some games, and how he was going to demand that they play, and they've gotten it going and looking pretty good. I don't think they were really thought of as a sure playoff team at the start of the season, but he's done a good job. He'd been in the American Hockey League with the LA Kings American Hockey League affiliate in Ontario as head coach for the last 3 years, was an assistant coach with the Kings before that, and obviously a really good player to be involved in the Joe Thornton trade in 06 or 05. It was 05. It was 05. Sorry about that.
I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. But how about you, though? How much stock do you put in their last loss? They get blown out by Minnesota in Minnesota. I mean, we see the clips from that building, and the place is ablaze with excitement for Quinn Hughes. And the Bruins are at the end of a 3-game road trip where they've already won the first 2. It's kind of like mission success already at this point. Sleepy first period in that game, and Minnesota just kind of starts rolling, feeding off the excitement in that building. I don't put a ton of stock into that last loss, Adrian. If anything, for Utah, I would have rather seen Boston win that game as opposed to getting blown out, because now you get Marco Sturm has the opportunity to go back into that room and try and reignite some of that passion that they had in a 4-game win streak that was leading up to that loss in their last game.
I'd call it maybe a scheduled loss, Mike, going into Minnesota. Loss? A scheduled loss going into Minnesota.
2 days rest. How is that a scheduled loss?
2-0 on a trip. Some nice wins. Beat St. Louis.
Is it an implied loss or a scheduled loss? I think it's more of an implied loss. Scheduled wise, they had 2 days off.
Okay. Implied loss is a better use of my verbiage, Mike.
You're getting our listeners are getting a little taste of, is this going to be a Friday free-for-all coming up?
I think we got to do our Mammoth Daily Dictionary in our next Friday free-for-all.
Yeah. And if you have any other terms that you hear us use lots of time, scheduled loss, implied loss, scheduled win, or anything like that, any of those buzzwords, list them in the comments, because we might have forgotten a couple, but we want to go through and create a lexicon, if you will, of our Mammoth Daily terms and what they mean.
Mammoth Bingo worked out well, Mike. We have won 2 straight games and have checked a lot of boxes. In bingo, Mike, it's like everything. You're not going to bat 1,000, but Mammoth, I think, 75 to 80% of the things we said in Mammoth Bingo have come to fruition in 2 straight games.
And it's going to be a tough one tonight, AD. Like let's finish up here with Boston in the preview, but The Bruins, 19 wins on the year. That's tied for the second most in the Eastern Conference. And the Bruins are one of the main culprits as to why the East has been so competitive, because them and a team like the Penguins were two groups that nobody had really circled as playoff contenders. And here they are right in the mix. Bruins in a wild card spot as we sit right now. I guess, how do you look at this game in the context of what we saw this last Sunday with Utah earning their second straight win? So now you've won back-to-back games. And the last one came in extremely dramatic fashion where you were creating chances. The analytics folks would pat you on the back through two periods, but the scoreboard was not kind to you through two. And then you have that huge burst in an emotional victory. I guess, how do you look at tonight, Adrian, in the context of all of this?
Well, you're catching Boston after a successful road trip. After that, a 4-game winning streak snapped. Nice trip. First game back at home. It's a homestand for them that's going to include Utah, Edmonton, rejuvenated Vancouver, Ottawa, and Montreal. So 5-game homestand starting for Boston. Mike, for me, with the Mammoth, I think it's an opportunity to get a nice little run started here. They won a couple games. Anaheim, Vancouver, 3 games that they were all in, didn't pull out. Now they've won 2 in a row again. So I think that the way that they won the game on Sunday looked like a team that could be getting ready to go on a run. Stuff happens contagiously, especially when things are going good for you. And Mike, winning is contagious. When you're finding ways to win, it's what you were doing in October when things were going well. You got things rolling, and I think the Mammoth are coming off a couple pretty nice wins where they've had to push forward to get the 2 points in both of them.
Talking with some of the guys and some also say members of the team after Sunday's big win, I was surprised with the flippancy of how they treated Utah's comeback. Didn't expect to use the word flippancy today, but here we are. And what I mean is that, like, on the air, Adrian, we're losing our minds. Utah just scored 4 goals in 6 minutes, and oh my gosh, the comeback! This is incredible, best comeback in franchise history. But we heard it from Sean Dursey after the game on the radio, and I talked to one of our, I'll say, staff members who was kind of echoed the same thing, and they were like, "Yeah, like we knew, we get one, we got a good chance." I was like, what? You guys just hours ago, like, had this incredible comeback, and you're giving me these kind of shrugs and, oh yeah, we know, like, we had a good chance to win. But I think I bring that up to say it sounded to me like a confident group, like a group that's playing with confidence, even predating their win against Seattle, going back to the last few games against LA and against Florida, where playing hard, playing the way you need to for the most part. Yes, there are plenty of mistakes in all the games, even up from LA to Pittsburgh, plenty of mistakes that need to get cleaned up. But the overarching theme is that this is a group that has confidence in the way they play. And that is a character trait that you see with these winning teams, these perennial playoff teams that don't panic and don't flinch when they're down in games. They just continue to trust what their system and their process is.
It sounds like a lot of what we heard from Florida when they came in on Wednesday. It's their season is what it is so far, but they've gotten some wins, and they've just kind of got that identity, that fabric to just go out and want to play the same every night. And if you don't win, you know what you want the loss to look like, because you're not going to win every game. But were you during the course of it. And Mammoth are getting some goals too, Mike. Like, they're putting the puck in the net. And when you're able to do that, you can overturn a game where you gave up 3 goals off of turnovers, 2 from the offensive end, 1 from a bad defensive zone turnover. It's not a high percentage situation to be in when you're down 3-0 off of 3 turnovers to come back. But when you can put the puck in the net like the Mammoth have done, and they've done it without Logan Cooley, 3 of the 4 lines in 2 straight games have scored. Both power play units have scored for the Mammoth. So putting the puck in the net too, and that's something that, going back to to the Rangers game on November 21st, the Mammoth have put up at least 3 in all but 3 games during this stretch, encompassing almost a month.
Second time this year that Utah has scored 5 or more goals in back-to-back games. They did so against St. Louis and Minnesota back in October during that win streak, scoring 7 and then 6 against those teams, respectively, Adrian. But we've got a great mailbag that we need to get to as well. Any final thoughts on kind of the context of tonight's game or the build-up to this evening's matchup against Boston?
One of my coaches in the AHL, Jay Verity, who's now an assistant coach with the Philadelphia Flyers, used to say the same thing to me every day when, we're talking about the game, practice. He'd say, here's something for the dictionary, Mike, for the Mammoth Daily Dictionary. And okay. I mentioned it to you and Will Trupshaw last night. He used to say, nothing ever changes for us, right? You want to go out and be the same person, the same team every single night, whether you're playing a first place team, whether you're on a back-to-back, whether you're, starting a road trip, starting a homestand, you want to be the exact same thing. And I think the Mammoth, we've seen that when nothing ever changes for us, how they come out and compete. Yeah. They've come from behind. 9 of the 16 wins have been come from behind wins, which is great. Would like to, stop having to do that for over half of the wins, but they don't give up. They keep going. And, as we heard from the guys, like they're down 3-0, and like we felt like if we got one, we'd keep going. All good.
Yeah. Flippancy in the air. Flippancy makes it sound like they don't care. They do care, obviously, but there was a nonchalantness, I guess. There was an ease, a comfort where it's okay. Everything's going to be okay.
Here's what it is, Mike, because I've felt this too. When you have a good team and you win a game like that, you get on the bus and it's just like hum ho, whatever. Pass me back that pizza. Come back here. Let's get the card game started. And it's how they are after every game. Win or a loss. A bad team wins a game like that, and it's just like they just won the Stanley Cup on the bus, right? It's crazy. It's nuts. We got to stop at the convenience store and get treats, right? You know what I'm saying? A good team wins a game like that, and you can't tell. It's the same as they win a game 6-2 or lose a game on the road.
I think that's the higher up you go to, there's more of that. I think that's a maturity thing. Because I remember, I noticed this in the AHL first, like I'd walk into the room maybe 15, 20 minutes after a game ended, would walk in to grab guys for media and things like that. And I was always surprised after wins how low key the room was. And I was always surprised after losses when someone would smile at me. Like I was a church mouse in those rooms. I didn't want to make any noise or bump anybody or give anybody a bad look. And, there would be, a player who's like, hey, Mike, what's up? After a loss, because, you have a chance to play the next day. But AD, let's wrap up this first segment. Let's get to our mailbag because we have a bunch of great submissions from all across Mammoth Nation. Let's get to that next, right here on Mammoth Daily.
Looks like the mail's here. Time for the Mammoth Mailbag.
Time for the mailbag. Mail is here, Adrian. We walked down to the curb. The flag is up for us. No, the flag's, we've been through this. You put the flag up. The homeowner puts the flag up. The mail carrier puts the flag down. So the flag is down. The mail has arrived. What do we have today? You let on that we had some great submissions.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's start here with Woody. And Woody says, I selfishly expect 4 to 5 goals a game out of the Mammoth. Have other teams become better prepared and figured out our system rather than it being an issue with the Mammoth preparedness against other teams? Gosh, Mike, I went back over the years in the NHL, 4 or 5 goals a game. For us this year, I think it's been get 3 goals a game and you're going to be in a good position to win. For the Mammoth this year, when they get 3 goals or more, they've got a record of 15-6. 4 or 5 goals a game. Let's just go over history a little bit here. The Oilers in the 80s had, I think, 5 teams in a row that scored more than 5 goals a game. Okay. So there's one example of a team that scored 5 goals a game. Different era of hockey, different
for a season?
goalie equipment. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Hey,
Yeah.
you're not seeing that now. No offense, Grant, but he wasn't shooting on Andrei Vasilevsky.
To find a team of recent in the 2000s that was anywhere close to that. The Edmonton Oilers, the highest of the 2000s in 22-23, they scored 3.96 goals a game. Highest scoring team since the 90s. The Avs, their first year in Colorado. Highest scoring team since 95-96. That ranked 95th all-time in NHL history. In 18-19, the Tampa Bay team that got swept by Columbus in the first round, they were 113th of all time. They scored 3.89 goals a game. And then the third highest ranked team in this era, really, the 2009-2010 Caps, they scored 3.82 goals a game. That's 140th of all time. This year, Mike, Avs lead the NHL. They're scoring 4 goals a game. Ducks are behind them. They're scoring 3.44. Utah, Mike, 13th out of 32 teams in the NHL, 3.12 goals a game. That is an 8-team jump from last year when Utah was 21st, averaging 2.93 goals a game. So just to put that all into perspective, for 4 or 5 goals a game, one team in an era 40 years ago, and it was a different game, 5 goals a game. And then you have to go back in the 2000s here, Edmonton 3.96. So 4 or 5 goals a game. That's a lot for us, Mike. I think our message has been, when you get to 3, you're in a great spot to collect standings points and get a result.
Those teams that's pre-butterfly. I mean, it's little different back then. I'm looking at last year's highest scoring team, Tampa Bay, at just over 3.5 per game. So I do think, because I feel a little bit of what Woody's saying. It's like, there's so much skill. We hype up the skill on this team so much, and so when they don't score, I think the fan base feels it. Like, I feel it. Okay, we've got Clayton Keller and Nick Schmaltz and JJ. We traded to get JJ Peterka. Like, why aren't we scoring? Why aren't we scoring more goals? And I do think there's a part of this team that needs to be able to do a better job scoring when scoring is hard, right? Like, we've seen this against good teams, like the Mammoth. When they're rolling, they can put up huge numbers, and everybody kind of gets a goal. Everybody gets a 4-point night, and then sometimes against really structured, perennial playoff teams like LA, like Florida, the goals, it's just harder. It's harder for everybody to score on those guys, but that's when some of those skill guys can't just run around and use that skill as much, because those teams are so well adapted to canceling that out. And there's a few teams like that, like LA and Florida are 2 teams that are specifically designed to beat other teams, right? Like, the Panthers were created to demolish the Tampa Bay Lightning. That's how that group was created. The LA Kings have been kind of reforged to be the antithesis to the Edmonton Oilers in the Pacific Division, right? They're heavy. They play a very structured defensive game. So those teams are specifically designed to beat other specific teams in their respective divisions. And I think against teams like that are built to that are built to handle some of the star power, like Florida is built to handle Tampa's star power, LA built to handle Edmonton's star power. They can handle Utah's star power sometimes as well. That was kind of a winding road, but the overall point is, I do think this team needs to be a little bit better in the in-between games, not when it's just everything's going your way and you can put up 6 or 7.
I'll be honest with you, Mike. I go back over a couple weeks here, getting shut out by Calgary, a game that was 1-0 until an empty netter, a 1-0 loss to St. Louis when you had a 5-minute power play situation. I mean, You didn't have Logan Cooley there. He had just gone down. I think that affected the team as well. But I left both of those games thinking we couldn't get a goal. We couldn't get a goal in that game. That for me is that you couldn't get a result in a game where you allowed a single goal. That I understand, right? Like I left those games like how can you not score in a game like that? How did you not score?
No, I agree. I agree. And that's what I'm saying. When things are going, they go, right? Like when this team is rolling, it starts rolling downhill really quickly in a good way, and all the momentum is with you. And Keller and Schmaltz and Peterka are zipping it around, boom, 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 boom. But when it gets tough, when the ice is a little choppy, right? When you don't quite have your legs, that's when these playoff teams, these championship teams, that's when they find a way to adjust and still score and just score in different ways. And I think Utah is doing that, but they're in the process of learning that.
Yeah. And I think it's in the last week. I think you can look at it since Utah got back from Calgary and say, okay, we felt the same way that you guys did, and they've made some strides to adjust getting to the interior harder. Let's take a question here from Your Mom Loves Hockey. Always a crowd pleaser, Mike. She is asking about shaking up the line. Says it feels kind of like a Yahtzee game. And she chimed in after the Florida game saying that she noticed tonight that passing and execution and puck handling skills of the Panthers far surpassed ours. She says it feels like not having consistency in the lines game in and game out may play a role, but is that an accurate assessment or is this standard practice? And she's not seasoned enough to know. Great question. And Mike, the standard easy thing is win and you're in, right? You win, you keep things as they are. And when you're going through a game or two and, you look at stuff and you might move some stuff around for the Mammoth. First year with JJ Peterka, trying to find the perfect spot for him. Yep. Did we get it with Keller and Schmaltz? It's looking pretty good. Swapping Boot and Krause on lines 2 and 3, I think had a pretty good effect too. But what are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, I think it's something where you could also you could say the inverse of that, right? Where, okay, things aren't working. It looks like we're just a little off. Let's shake up the lines. We got to change something. And so it's kind of damned if you do, damned if you don't. But I really respect Andre Tourigny a lot for the changes he's made to the lines. Especially I go back to remember when he broke up Krause, McBain, and Carcone. We saw that in San Jose. We're like, whoa, like this has been Utah's best line. And sometimes you have to take away from a line that's been really good so that you can then have two lines that are performing closer to where they need to be. Peterka jumps on with Krause and McBain, and boom, Utah gets 2 goals right away, courtesy of Peterka. They force overtime, and that line switch worked perfectly. I have noted there has been more changes recently, but that's just because Utah hasn't been winning. Like you said, if the Mammoth are winning, you're not seeing these changes, right? Like the good lines stay together. The famous lines, they tend to stay together because they're part of winning efforts, where when you're not winning, like Utah struggled in November, that's when things get switched around. And one thing that is pretty common in hockey, but also Bear has told us he likes pairs, right? On forward lines, 2 guys, and then you find a third that can kind of fit in with them instead of trying to find 3 guys that all mesh together. So a lot of times look for pairs within the line, and then that third can kind of rotate a little bit more. Like Schmaltz and Keller is a good example. They almost always play together because they are somehow linked through what's it called when you're telepathically? They're telepathically linked. They know where each other are. They've been playing together for years. But that third person on the line, that will change, and you will see similar production levels. Usually, regardless of who's in that third spot. With Peterka, there's a whole nother dynamic element that's been added to that group, we see it a lot with Cooley and Gunther. That's another pairing of forwards that will stay together while that third spot on the line, that other winger rotates. Sometimes it's been McBain. It was Boot for a little bit. But keep those pairs in mind when you're looking at the line changes. And you might think, oh my gosh, they put the lines in a blender. Well, really, he just kind of shuffled up the third guy with those pairs in a lot of situations, but he kept the heart and soul of each of the lines together.
Yeah, great question. Thanks for asking. Your mom loves hockey. One of our favorite nurses in the Valley. She's outstanding. Let's talk about power play units. Now, Mike talked about 5-on-5 line combos. Let's talk about power play units. Here's one of our favorites. It's Kevin.
Kevin's been getting a lot of run the last couple days. We got to his question on the broadcast, on the radio broadcast earlier, or one of his comments, and now he's making it in the mailbag. So great work, Kevin Hall.
Yeah, here he is. He says he's never heard it asked to an NHL coach or an assistant coach, but with 2 power play units on every team, more or less, right? Has any team used any significantly different strategies with the 2 units, more than just different players have different style of plays, maybe to deploy different styles against PK setups or goalies, or even back and forth in the same power play to keep other teams guessing? Great question, Mike. And for the answer, we enlisted our good friend, Dominic Moore, on different power play units, 1 and 2. How do you adjust those? Do you adjust them, and to what?
All right. Great questions. As always, this one was about the power play and whether teams ever use significantly different strategies with the 2 units. Yes. Short answer is yes. I think what you try to do with the 2 different units is play to your strengths in terms of the personnel that you have. So if you notice with Utah, that second unit, they've got Krause on there, they've got Carconi on there. Those guys have been playing really with kind of a 5-on-5 mentality. They have so much success at 5-on-5 grinding, and they're bringing that kind of grinding spirit to the power play. And I think that makes a lot of sense, right? Like, get pucks to the net, fight for pucks below the goal line, winning loose pucks back. They're doing that. So second unit, that's kind of their MO. First unit, obviously, you've got some elite playmakers, Schmaltz, Keller, Peterka. So they're trying to snap it around a little bit more, pass it around, try to open up maybe a one-timer for Gunther, or, try to find the open man by drawing the opposition into places they don't want to be with their puck movement. I think, though, at the end of the day, the best units actually deploy different strategies on the same unit. So what I mean by that is, if you look at the Pittsburgh Penguins, for example, if you watch all of their power play goals, it's really hard to detect a trend. So it's not like you watch the goals and they're all kind of happening the same way with the same play. And that's what an elite power play does. You have threats from different areas, which forces the penalty kill to wonder where they're going to go next. The minute you become too predictable, the minute you become easier to shut down.
Oh, just excellent classroom session with Dr. Dom. That's great insight. One thing I'll add to that, Adrian, is the power play dynamic can also change a lot depending on the handedness of who is where. So if you have Sean Dursey, per se, up top, Dursey's a righty, lefty. I'm forgetting.
Righty.
He's a righty. That's different. That's different compared to Mikhail Sergachev, who's a left-handed shot. And so when you're passing into a one-timer scenario, the handedness of the player matters. So you might, like with Sergachev, he's a lefty, so he can one-time it if he gets it back from Gunther on the left wing, whereas Dursey can one-time it from up top when he gets it back from whoever is on the right wing, Carconi, with the second unit. So that's a little slight change between units as well.
All right, great question. Thanks as always, Kevin. Here's a good one, Mike, on the Olympic break. It's from Chicago DP. He says, can you explain why you keep using the Olympic break as an excuse for the tight schedule? Last year, Four Nations was during the same period. The year before, there was an all-star break. Isn't February always shorter, which means they still have to squeeze the same 82 games into the same amount of time? I don't understand why this keeps being brought up.
The schedule is, or February is shorter. Chicago DP is right on top of that one. No leap year question, though. Sometimes you get a leap year. Sometimes it's a little longer. Honestly, Chicago DP is just because broadcasters like to complain. That's the
We're all about excuses. No, here are the facts. And I'm glad you asked. Because if you have a question, ask us, right? If we're not articulating something enough or explaining something clearly, please ask. That's why we have a Tuesday mailbag. All right, Mike. So if you look at the months in comparison to last year, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, 11 games each in October. This year we played 15 times in November, 13 times last year, 14 times in December, 13 times last year, 15 times in February, 14 times last year. All right, February. Here we go. Now we're getting into the meat and potatoes of this. Last year in February, we had 9 games. This year we have 4. In March last year, we had 15. This year we have 15. Last year we had 13. April, 8 and 8. So you look at the months, Mike, you're like, whatever, 1 or 2 more. Not really a big deal. All right, so here's where it comes into play. Mike, last year, the Mammoth, before Christmas, had 25 games with 1 day's rest or on a back-to-back. This year, they have 35 games before Christmas with 1 day's rest or on a back-to-back. Last year, they did not play their first back-to-back until November 23rd. They played 4 back-to-backs before Christmas. This year, Utah, 7 back-to-backs before Christmas. So all of that stuff comes into play here. Last year's Four Nations face-off break, we went 12 days between games, right? Did not play from February 10th to February 21st. This year, do not play a game from February 5th to February 24th. That's 20 days. That's 8 extra days. Comparing this year to last year, the Four Nations face-off break was long. An all-star break is typically 3 days, right? So the months don't add a lot of context, but when you look at games played on 1 day's rest or a back-to-back, and you have 10 more games this year on 1 day's rest or back-to-back than last year, and February, 9 games last year, 4 games this year. I think it explains how compressed and different the schedule is.
And they don't want to kill us with back-to-backs either. Like, if there were a few more back-to-backs, obviously we'd have a few more days of rest. But they really try to make sure they don't hammer you with back-to-backs. I think we actually play 1 less back-to-back than we did last year. Is that right? 11 this year, 12 last year. And so by keeping the amount of back-to-backs relatively the same, it's really hard to bunch things up. And just on a personal level, I mean, I remember last year getting to explore Utah a lot because I moved to Utah in September, just before the start of the season. Didn't get to explore a ton right away, but as the schedule went along, there would be a bunch of days where it's like, oh, no practice today. It's a Wednesday. I can check out this new spot, right? So we don't have that this year. Like, it is, you play your game and you wake up the next day getting ready for the next game the next day. And we really felt that coming home from the 6-game road trip where, and Bear said this to me off record. Well, I guess I'm putting it on record right now, but Bear made a comment to me about, it didn't feel like we were home and in a normal flow until Wednesday. That was the game we played the Florida Panthers, because you get back from the road trip, Sunday night, and is that what? No, you get back Saturday night, and you have Sunday to kind of recover. So you have Sunday to recover from the road trip, but part of that's also spent getting ready for Monday. Like, there was no like real rest period because you just wake up and have to get ready for the next day. And that's what it's felt like. And reason we keep bringing it up is because we notice it. Those of us who are traveling and with the team every day, and it's a lot this year. And just be thankful that Utah didn't go over to play in Sweden or something like that, because the schedule would have been even worse.
For me, Mike, there's excuses and there's reality, and you know what excuses are. We can tell when people are making excuses. We're talking reality here. And you know, we've heard, right? We meet with Bear every day that the team is on the ice. Our broadcast team does, and we hear from him, and it's been something that he has been looking ahead to since training camp, right? This stretch from November 4th up until Christmas time, where you've got maybe 2 days that aren't an every other day game thing.
Right.
And, you know, we hear from coaches from around the NHL, and they're all saying the same thing. And they're all saying the same thing to Mike about how their teams are losing games on, you know, execution stuff and stuff that you can tell teams are fatigued. And I think you've noticed it too in spurts of power plays being drawn this year. Doesn't seem like there's as many power plays that have been drawn, because when you're spinning your wheels, when you're playing with full energy, you're drawing a few more power plays. And I think it's hurt Utah because the way they play is designed to draw power plays. And there's been some games where I think we could have had 2 or 3 more, but with the energy level of the game, it just hasn't been in the cards. When you only take 1 penalty, you're not going to have 6 power plays.
Yeah.
All right, final one here on the mailbag, and it comes to us from Ronnie. He says, listening to your podcast on my walk today, look up and Fulta zooming by on a scooter with a backpack full of Christmas yum in tow.
Yes, Ronnie, I'm sorry that you did not get any out on the street. I would have been happy to share. So I'm curious if he just knew, like, was he listening to the show and Ronnie knew that I was bringing cookies to the arena, or did he smell the sweet aroma of the treats wafting toward him as I zoomed past him on the scooter? Oh, thanks for listening, Ronnie. Flag me down next time.
Yeah, usually, I mean, you got people hollering at Mike all the time on the road. We see all these Mike's morning afters with, you know, Mike crossing the road and standing in front of somebody's car like he was in Pittsburgh. So yeah, just holler at the guy. It's just business as usual. Mike, one thing as we wrap up our mailbag, did a gentleman named Shandon stop by for cookies on Friday night?
Shannon and Denise. I think they had some. No.
Yeah, we got you on a little bit of fun, Mike. Shannon came by before you had gotten back to the radio area in section 6-7, and he's like, we heard there were cookies. I was like, oh yeah. So I grabbed the cookies. I'm take as many as you like. Go to town. And I said, you got to do me one favor if you really like these. You got to come back in a few minutes when Mike's back and say, hey, Mike, I heard there were cookies tonight. So
Shannon and Denise, you two-timing sons of guns.
We got you, Mike.
Unbelievable. Oh, did they take the 7-layer bars too, or was it just the Swedish?
I gave him a 7-layer bar.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
I was running low on that. That's funny because they walked up and I was excited to share the cookies, and they come by and they say hi a lot, and and I never knew that they were just making me feel better. They were they were acting. Oh, I can't believe that.
I said, if you like these, you got to come back and tell Mike, but don't tell him you've been here yet. Just grab some more cookies. Everybody loved the cookies.
Gonna have to police this.
The Kevin Stenlund cookies, we were calling them.
Yes, the Swedish cookies. Sean, I got a tweet from our friend Sean Rosie on Twitter, who he was saying they were good. He approved in the Twitter comments. So I'm glad. There will be more and different variety as well. I'm planning to craft some more once we get back from the road trip, but we'll see. It's going to be pretty hard to live up to the last batch.
It was good. Thanks, Mike. 7-layer bars were amazing. Come back with a third period. You want to take a quick troll around the NHL? when we come back to wrap it up on a Tuesday?
A lot happened last weekend, and we need to talk about it. You need to hear about it. That's coming up next. Third period on the way, right here on Mammoth Daily.
This is Mammoth Daily.
Well, it's Tuesday night in the NHL, and tonight that means that we think we're going to see Stuart Skinner don the black and yellow of the Pittsburgh Penguins, suiting up against the former Penguin, Tristan Jarry, but he'll be with the Edmonton Oilers. Big trade went down at the start of last weekend. Adrian, we didn't have a chance to talk about it on Monday because we were so enamored with Utah's 5-4 overtime win in Pittsburgh. That was not Skinner in that game. We thought it might be. Instead, it was the rookie Murashov. And we think it's going to be Skinner tonight, but just your reaction on that trade, because we had been thinking, or at least a lot of league circles had been thinking that Skinner was on the trade block for a while. There's been so much talk about Edmonton's goaltending situation in the last few years, and they finally make a deal, and it's for a goalie who makes twice as much with similar postseason track record success over his career.
For me, it was a hard trade, Mike. Stuart Skinner's an Edmonton boy.
Yeah.
Grew up there. They've had their goals allowed issues, and it's been a big story during the Stanley Cup final the last couple of years, but they were kind of starting to roll again. I thought, and tough trade for me to see. We're not involved with Edmonton or Pittsburgh, but I like the trade from the Pittsburgh standpoint. They've got a couple young goalies. They now get more flexibility, getting rid of that Tristan Jarry 5-year contract. But for Edmonton, had kind of a heart and soul guy, I thought, up there, and they just started to win again. And when Edmonton falls apart in front of Stuart Skinner, it doesn't make him look very good. And there's been nights where pucks have gone in that, his goals saved above expected was in the minus. But for me, that was a tough trade. Kind of like a couple years ago, I thought Edmonton was really starting to get rolling when they dismissed Jay Woodcroft, and it was kind of similar thoughts for me. Like, kind of going again. You sure you want to do that?
Well, then they went to two straight finals after that. So something worked out with Knobloch, I guess. But for me, this is a calculated business decision for Kyle Dubas in Pittsburgh, and it's a gamble for the Edmonton Oilers because the numbers are similar. Now, Jarry's been good this year. Jarry has been good this year. You can't deny that. And if he continues to play at this level throughout the rest of the year, the Oilers will be a better team. But when you look at what's a pretty large sample size, a pretty large body of work, you still have the same questions about Jarry that you had about Skinner in the postseason. And that was always the rub, right? Like Skinner figured it out more or less in the regular season, but in the postseason just wasn't a Stanley Cup winning goalie. Well, Tristan Jarry wasn't that in Pittsburgh either, and there were some good teams in front of him as well. So for me, good on Kyle Dubas in Pittsburgh for, like you said, acquiring undervalued assets. And I say plural because you get Kulak, who was not having a great year this year in Edmonton. It was not going well for him. But last year with the Oilers, he was playing like 23 and a half minutes a night on a team that reached the Stanley Cup finals. And when he's playing well, he's a really ruddy, reliable defenseman. With a big shot from the top of the zone. So I like it a lot for Pittsburgh. Get a change of scenery, and you have to add in the backdrop of the Penguins' goaltending depth organizationally. We saw Murashov on Sunday. Now, yes, he let in 5 goals, and so his stat line's not going to look great, but that was only his 4th start, I think, in the NHL, and he's had great numbers in the American Hockey League. He's played really well at North America at 3 different professional leagues, including the NHL during his first few starts. So they feel really good about Sergei Murashov as maybe the future, and they're not tied to any goaltenders now through next year. So got to feel good, I think, if you're Pittsburgh in that regard. Edmonton, you're just hoping that Tristan Jarry in the playoffs becomes something that he has not been.
Yeah, that was the first trade of the morning on Friday. And then we kind of started to get into the afternoon and the evening. And right before we started, we had a Quinn Hughes deal to Minnesota, Mike, that I don't think anybody saw coming at that point. There had been reports that Vancouver had been talking to New Jersey to reunite Quinn Hughes with his brothers. But I don't think anybody saw Minnesota. In fact, heard Elliot Friedman on 32 Thoughts, the podcast, saying he didn't hear about Minnesota until the deal was just about done. But the Wild took a big swing, sent their first rounders from 2022, 2024, and 2026 to Vancouver. And Zeev Buium, the 2024 first rounder, Liam Ogren, the 2022 first rounder, and then an upcoming first rounder. So Minnesota was willing to do the deal, Mike, without
and Rossi.
Marco Rossi, yes, a solid center. Sorry for missing that as I was going down the prospect list. But yeah, 3 big prospects, Marco Rossi, a solid second line center, which Vancouver desperately needs.
Yes.
But you heard that Minnesota was willing to make the deal without, any kind of commitment for the future. Hughes has this year and next year left on his current contract. He can sign an 8-year contract with Minnesota before the new collective bargaining agreement goes in on July 1st, but they were willing to make that deal, take that swing without anything beyond the future of the next year and a half for that.
Yeah, and people are ragging on Minnesota, saying like, oh, okay, like you signed, you trade all this away, and he's going to be gone in a year and a half, and he's just going to go to New Jersey anyway. Whereas, like if you lose, if you don't win the Stanley Cup, and he ends up going to New Jersey anyway, well, then you just kind of you really put yourself in a bad spot, giving away Buium, giving away Rossi, and a first round pick. But if you lose, you're in a bad spot anyway. Like, this is Minnesota's championship window, and how many opportunities do NHL general managers have to trade for a guy like Quinn Hughes? Like, not many. These opportunities don't come up. He's one of the best players in the league. I mean, we see this happen once a season. Last year it was Mikko Rantanen, top 10 forward in the league. This year, it's Quinn Hughes. Like, these opportunities, it's once a year, maybe, to acquire a player like this. And you heard some of the teams that were in. I think Detroit was also in. He's a Michigan guy. They were in on Hughes. But to me, for Minnesota, or for Vancouver, I should say, it all hinges on Zeev Buium. Like, what Marco Rossi is for the most part, like pretty good 2C, plays with good players, can make the right plays, good vision, undersized, but, he can be a 60-point guy. First pick is what a first pick is. You can build towards the future, but Buium is just 20 or 21, I think, fresh out of college, and had a goal the other night in his first game with the Canucks. But if he becomes your number one defenseman, then I think you're feeling pretty good about this. If he becomes a number one defenseman who's reliable both ways and still putting up, 10 to 15 goals and 60, 70 points, like, I think that's what people are seeing as his ceiling. Like, if you just, I mean, Petrangelo's a bit of a stretch of a comparison, but if you get a true number one D-man out of this, yeah, you lost Quinn Hughes, but you do get a lot coming back, and you were probably going to have to give up Hughes anyway, or to at least get something for him. So if Buium becomes a true number one D-man in Vancouver, you're not sweating this too much if you're the Canucks, I don't think.
In the short term for the Vancouver fans, it's the the wounds of losing Quinn Hughes a year after you lose JT Miller, a year after you were making a playoff run, and gave the Edmonton Oilers a nice series there. So
yeah, and they've kind of pushed back on anything around the word rebuild in Vancouver for a while now, and haven't quite leaned into it. And I think this is a really good step towards rebuilding on the fly a little bit. You're not in a full tank. You're not punting on everything, but you're getting proven assets. And that's what I love that Vancouver did. Instead of just getting like a million first-round picks, you get a couple guys that you've seen now in the NHL that you've had eyeballs on that can compete at this level in Rossi and Bouillon. And then there's the Ogrum who, could he be a third line, middle six type winger? Maybe like that. That's not a bad throw in, so to speak. I don't like to use that word, but he's certainly the least sexy part of that trade for Vancouver. But if you get another serviceable NHLer out of that, then you're laughing for the Canucks.
Yeah, Bill Guerin said, a trade has to make sense for both teams, acknowledging that he gave up a lot to make that deal while he was cooking meatballs on Friday night.
I heard that.
It's the best part of the whole thing. Yeah. Mike, great Tuesday episode. Great to have you back on the Tuesday Mailbag. I don't know if you noticed, but our Monday morning power play, we went on the power play for about 13 seconds. We scored and we were done. So it was a quick episode Monday, back to our usual setting here. We've got a game tonight in Boston, 5 p.m. We'll be on the air at 4 p.m. on 97.5, the KSL Sports Zone. Mike, have a great call. Talk to you tonight. And we're back on Wednesday for our Odd Man Rush.